Good morning guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Sam from Gemini team and we're going to be talking about no such thing as a bad student, only bad instructor. Oh yeah. Right, as always, nice positive. Hope you're doing well, hope you're in a safe place. And Christmas is again just around the corner. Only a few more days. I finally got around to doing my Christmas shopping. That's all done and dusted. Thank God. So, on to business. Bad instructor, bad student. Which one is it? Now, this is something which has been in the martial arts world and it's bandied back and forth a lot of the time, and it's stuff you hear, I certainly have anyway, heard people say there's no such thing as a bad student, only a bad instructor. And that's even put forward in films like Karate Kid with Danny LaRusso and Mr. Miyagi. Yet, I got thinking about this, and indeed I thought about this for like many years in my martial arts career, and I was like, how much substance does that statement have? No such thing as a bad student, only a bad instructor. I feel there's some validity to that. However, I still feel that it's not the full picture. It's very easy to just say, okay, so you meet a bad student and you're like, oh, it's not your fault. You're the product of what you've been taught from your instructor. Therefore, the blame is now entirely on the instructor. And I feel that's a very, very easy thing to do. And it's very shallow. And maybe the psychologist in me is coming through here in regards to people generally don't like to think. People are very much cognitive misers in that regard. They just like very simplistic explanations to solve a lot of the deeper questions in life. And they find that to think, oh, okay, well, here's a student with a very bad attitude or bad technique. It's not your fault, it's your instructor's. Solved, case closed. And it's very easy to do that, and I feel as though it's not necessarily fair on a lot of instructors. Granted, yes, you do get some very, very unscrupulous instructors out there. You get some very bad instructors. You've got instructors who may teach their students bad attitude or bad technique or bad tuition, knowing what they're doing, which is in malicious intent. That's abuse, intentional abuse. Then you get some instructors who actually may teach their students wrongly or incorrectly or just generally bad without that intention. Maybe they're just bad at instructing. They could be good martial artists, but they just lack that leadership of how to actually instruct properly, and then that then rubs off onto the student. So sure, that could be like bad instructor, but from both an intentionally bad to an unintentionally bad. However, on the other side of the coin, you could actually get a student who is just bad. You could have a student who's had a very, very good instructor, who's had a very understanding, patient, person-centered, resilient, empathetic characteristics of this instructor, doing their utmost and their best to instill these qualities into their student. They're also teaching them as best as they can to their physical ability as well. They genuinely want, I'll get my words out eventually, they genuinely want their student to transcend the instructor's capabilities, to become better than the instructor. And again, a lot of instructors say, oh, that's my ultimate goal, which could be a discussion for another time. Yet despite that, despite all those good intentions, you sometimes do get students who are just bad. And when I say bad, I'm generalizing that word bad. You get bad in various different areas, but when I'm saying bad, I'm talking generally, not necessarily specific. So if that's the case, that latter scenario where it's just generally a bad student, who's to blame then? remember as well as life is not, again, going back to simplistic cognitive miser syndrome, life is not just simplistic. It's not just student and instructor in life. You're going to have a student, if it's a youngster, will go off to school. They'll get influenced by their peers at school. They'll get influenced by their teachers at school. They could go home and be influenced by their parents in various different ways, shapes or forms. It might come from an abusive family, which of course is going to have an influence on that young student. So all of these other dynamics get involved as well. And that's one of the beauties of something called systemic therapies, is that you're looking at the interaction of different elements outside of that student themselves. These different elements, these different systems, and how they interact with those systems outside of themselves will have an influence on them. So the student could have like all these negative influences from peers, from teachers, family upbringings, whatever. They then go to the martial arts school, and they're going to take a lot of that influence with them. Whether it's consciously or subconsciously, they're going to take that influence with them. So you could get the instructor who's actually a positive role model, who's doing their utmost to help this student, but it's just not going in. The student, especially if they're getting to like teenage adolescence, they're at that very delicate stage of where already, I don't want to say that they've been predetermined what they're going to be like in adulthood, but by that stage, it's quite hard to mold, if I want to use a very blunt term, that student to become a better person or to become a good person, a good martial artist or whatever. Subconsciously, they may have already been influenced to the point of where that future is now becoming quite tunnel visioned to that student. And I don't want that to sound fatalistic, because change can happen at any time in life. And a lot of people may even suggest that we're constantly going through a state of change, and who I'm going to be in 5 years' time is different to who I am now, which was different to who I was 5 years ago. And that could be applied to anybody. So anybody has the ability to change if you want to take a person-centered approach. However, I have seen examples of some very, very good instructors trying their utmost to be a positive influence and role model on that student. And quite often it's actually the student. The student may not want to learn, they may just be arrogant, whether that's going into a discussion of like biologically inherently arrogant, or have they learnt that via social learning theory, where they've learned to become arrogant via various different means. They just generally are a bad student. Those kind of cases, I really do feel for the instructors, because a lot of the time they will get the bad rap. The student will then go off, go to competitions, go to different events, post on online forums, and they will get a bad reputation for themselves. But then a lot of people will look at it and think, oh, you know, we should excuse them. It's all their instructor's fault. The instructor obviously didn't teach them this. The instructor obviously didn't teach them that. Maybe the instructor did teach them this and that. But the onus is actually on the student, whether or not they had the maturity to learn from that and take it on board, or even if they wanted to take it on board. A lesson that I learned a very long time ago was, somebody said to me, I can show you the door, but it's you who has to walk through it, which is encouraging me as a student to take that responsibility for myself. And that's kind of be applied for anything outside of martial arts as well. I can show you how to do something, but it's actually up to you how you apply that. I can teach you all the wisdom which I've learned over the years growing up, but I can't force you to actually act out on that. That's purely up to you. And many people would say that's the same with the students. I could teach you how to do this, that, and the other in martial arts, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna force you to do it. That's purely up to you whether you want to take that on board or not. It's that personal responsibility. And the message I really want to be able to take away from this, or to give to you guys on this, is by blaming the instructor all the time, by saying there's no such thing as a bad student, it's always a bad instructor, that's putting the blame 100% onto the instructor, which is not the case. You do get bad instructors, and yes, I have seen some students who've had bad instructors come away and they pretty much mirror the bad instructors' behaviours themselves.
I just wanted to share a very special letter I received from my master Hapkido, from my Korean martial arts teacher, who also taught me taekwondo when I started at his Korean martial arts school back in 2001, 2002, somewhere there.
Especially if it's a case of they've only had one instructor and they don't know any different. They've just been taught by one person, one or two people, who happen to be bad. That student's naturally going to think, oh, well, that's the way I've been taught, so that's all I know. Understandable. Doesn't mean I empathise with it, or agree to it, or condone it, but I do understand where they're coming from. However, to then just lump it all onto the instructor and say it's purely the instructor's fault. One, that's inaccurate. Two, untrue. And three, at risk of sounding like a kid, that's very, very unfair. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Do you know of any bad instructors? Do you know bad students? Do you know bad students who've come out of bad instructors? Do you know bad students who've then gone on to become bad instructors? The beauty of martial arts, it's a wide world where we're going to meet all kinds of different kind of people. Bad, good, short, tall, slim, fat. Let me know what you guys think. In the meantime, stay safe, train hard, and get ready for Christmas Day. It's just around the corner. Stay safe, guys. See you all next time. Booyah!